So, welcome to the Prudent Catholic podcast. I'm joined today by Caleb Christensen. He's 20 years old, finance major, and a Catholic revert, correct?
That's true, yep.
All right. So, I guess to start, go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got to, where you are now.
Yeah, well, that's a very long story for the whole reversion process, but the gist of it is, essentially to get to IU, I always kind of knew I wanted to study finance. I knew I wanted to go to IU for a very long time, since I was like 7. So both my sisters went here, but I like to tell people that I actually decided before they even decided to go. So I knew I wanted to come to IU for a while. But yeah, essentially in high school, I left the church. It was never a super formal thing, me leaving. Like, it was never like, on this day, I leave the church, But just over time, the problem that I ran into is that I was always told that I was given a good Catholic education. And I did go to Catholic school for my whole life, up until college. But I would be faced with these objections to the Catholic Church online that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
And since I was told I had a good Catholic education, I was kind of under the assumption that the church had no good response to these objections. So I kind of just let that fall away. And for all intents and purposes, I was an atheist throughout the entirety of high school. And then it was only once I got the second semester of my senior year of high school and then my first semester of my freshman year in college when I really started to dig deep. We can get into that in a minute.
Yeah.
Of trying to figure out what truth was, like capital T truth.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that I was willing to stake my life on. And that led to me my first semester of my freshman year in this very church upstairs to give my life to Christ. And once that happened, I knew I was at the point where I knew it was either all in or all out. And I went all in and decided to become a Bible study leader. That's how I met you, obviously.
Yep.
And that's how I got where I am today.
It's awesome. So, you were an atheist for a little bit.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about, in your mind, where that hardcore atheism came from. Like, how could you believe there's no God?
Yeah. Well, so the objections I would hear online weren't necessarily specifically Catholic objections. I ran into what's the so-called New Atheist movement, so like Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, that kind of thing. And they were just hardcore anti-theist objections. And so it would be, the most common, of course, is the problem of evil, is how could there be a God who allows evil? And I just didn't really hear a good answer to that for a very long time. And so I ended up just believing that it couldn't exist. It's funny, even though I went to Catholic school, I would say that my education in the sciences was actually better than my education in the faith.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you have no faith and when you have nothing existential to turn to? Well, you go to the sciences. I mean, why wouldn't you? They do provide very helpful answers to the problems of the world. And so, I kind of reverted back to that. It has to be all chance, because you can't deny that we are here. Like, I do exist. The world I interact with does exist. Science seems to answer these questions. Science is all there is. And if I wasn't Catholic now, I would still be deist. That is, I would believe that a God exists and that created the universe, but no longer interacts with the world.
Yeah.
But I do definitely see the pull of, if you see no good reason for God existing, everything needs to be determinate. There's no second choice. There is no free will without God. There is no morality. It is just what is.
Yeah.
And if you can't look back, if you can't point back to anything deeper than that, atheism is the best option. I think agnosticism, to me, it's a bit silly, this idea that we can't know whether or not God exists. If you can't know it, you basically have to act like he doesn't. And that's why you see people like Alex O'Connor. He may have changed this position now, but he's an atheist on YouTube. But he's always said that he's technically speaking like an agnostic, but he acts and speaks as if he's an atheist, and that's what he calls himself. Or you see, I think it was Christopher Hitchens would say that he's an agnostic that has the balls to say that he's an atheist, basically.
Yeah.
Because once you think it's impossible to know whether or not God exists, for all intents and purposes, he doesn't. So
essentially.
Yeah.
So because I made a video one time. The video was the subjectivity versus objectivity of God.
Right.
And basically the point I went into was that if there is a God, your beliefs are not subjective. This whole like, I guess, watery agnosticism, that gray area of subjectivity makes no sense because it leads to no answers and it leads to endless contradictions. But essentially, whenever you really look into it, God has to be objective. So there's not like, oh, well, this is fine, this is fine. It's like, well, no, it's really not if they're contradicting. You're believing in two different gods, two different sets of theology that completely contradict each other. So that's where I've kind of gone into that before.
And that's what I was saying before with like when I got to my freshman year of college. It was a very long journey to get to that point, but you do get to a place where you realize you're either all in or you're all out.
Yeah.
Like there's no in between, and especially with something like the Catholic Church. And I know some people don't like this about the Catholic Church, but it has an answer for everything.
Yeah, it does.
Particularly being Catholic, it's like you gotta go all in, and you see this problem with like cultural Catholics today, where like it's the church in Revelation that's lukewarm. Like it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Jesus will spit you back out, and I mean that's a problem for the Catholic Church right now because what is it, like 70% of Catholics in the U.S. don't go to Mass on Sundays or don't believe in the true presence of the Eucharist. Like it's crazy. You can't be in the middle. You're either all in, you're in the 30%, or you're in the 70%. There's no in between. You're either completely living your life for Christ, or at least trying to. Because don't get me wrong, like even though I'd say that I'm all in, I still make mistakes.
Oh, me too.
Still sin.
Yeah, absolutely.
All but 2 people didn't do that. So, there's no halfway. Whether it's in the Catholic Church, you're halfway in, halfway out. Whether it's Christianity, whether it's theism, whether it's atheism. If you're not making a choice, that's making a choice, and it's not the side you want to be on, in my opinion.
Yeah, right. That makes sense. So, kind of, was there any, I guess, drive or motive to your conversion from atheism back to theism and then Catholicism?
Yeah.
Was there something pushing you to look for answers?
Yeah. So here's the tangent.
Let's go.
So there got to be a point, and I apologize for coughing. I'm a little bit sick right now, but there got to be a point in high school where I started to come across things, particularly online. The internet played a huge role in my leaving the church and coming back.
Yeah.
Which we could talk about whether that's for better or for worse, but that's the state of the world right now. The internet is a battleground for a lot of these places, or a lot of these ideas. But I was starting to come across things on YouTube, particularly from the Protestant theologian William Lane Craig, and he was starting to give responses to these atheists that I actually thought were pretty good compared to some of the responses I've been hearing like in the previous decade, which were just terrible. And I did speech and debate in high school, and I'm just one of those people. Really, I think everyone is this type of person, but it's particularly strong in my brain that I kind of just need things to make sense. If something doesn't make sense, I either have to accept that it won't ever and kind of just ignore it, or do my absolute best to figure it out. And so I've been living as an atheist for probably about 2 or 3 years. I've been away from the sacrament of confession. So like I said, even though I never formally was like, on this day I'm not Catholic, I went over a year without going to confession, and I was receiving the Eucharist in a state of mortal sin. So like after a year of not going to confession, you do stop being Catholic. That's one of the requirements of being a practicing Catholic, is to go to confession once a year. There's a couple more, but so I was not a practicing Catholic for at least 2 years. And then, as it is in a lot of cases, there was actually a girl that I ended up having a crush on, who I did date for a while, for about 2 years, and she was very Catholic. And so I was like, all right, I feel a little bit fraudulent asking her out while like not being Catholic myself. So if she asks me why I'm not Catholic, I want to give her specific objections to the Catholic Church that I have. Because also, I mean, it's a bad idea to not be able to have those conversations with a person. So even though I was an atheist, I still understood the importance of having religious conversations with your partner.
And if you didn't, it's going to come up eventually anyways, inevitably.
Right. And especially when it comes to like bearing children. Like even if I was completely in the right about atheism and she was completely in the wrong about Catholicism, like that still matters in relationships to have those types of conversations. So I was like, all right, I should probably figure out exactly why I'm not Catholic. And this is when I started coming across, again, funny enough, a Protestant scholar, William Lane Craig, and he's the one who really got the ball rolling, where I was like, all right, hold on a second, it's not as obvious as I originally thought. And then once that that like itchy feeling in my head started to come up where I'm like, maybe I'm wrong about this. I basically had no other choice just to dive all in. And
Yeah.
so it started with debates on YouTube, and we can get into this in a bit too, where I think debates are helpful up to a certain point.
Right.
But eventually I got to a point where I started reading books. Um, there were a couple that William Lane Craig mentioned in his second debate with Sam Harris at Purdue. Particularly, there was one about the God being evil in the Old Testament. I can't remember the author of the book, but I read that. That was one of the first ones I read. I read William Lane Craig's book, Defending Christianity, or On Guard, A Defense of Christianity, and then his other one on just a general apologetic defense. He wrote it as a textbook for a course, but I read those two books. And in his book, in William Lane Craig's like textbook style book, there were two arguments for God's existence that like really pushed me, that really made a lot of sense to me, and that even to this day, like I've become a lot more familiar with apologetical arguments for God's existence, and these two to this day I think are the strongest. That would be the cosmological argument that there must be a creator to the universe, and that creator is what we commonly call to be God. And there's a lot going into that we can get into in a bit if you want. And then the argument for morality, that objective morality cannot exist without God, and yet even atheists and even myself act as though objective morality exists, which doesn't necessarily prove that God exists per se, but something that's also very helpful about these theistic arguments for God, especially as William Lane Craig lays them out, is that they all build each other up. So maybe one of them, like for example, the teleological argument, isn't the strongest on its own, but in accordance with all the other arguments, they form one very solid, strong argument for theism, with the two strongest, I believe, being the argument for morality and the cosmological argument. So at this point, I was like, all right, I'm pretty sure God exists. This was second semester of my senior year, like I was talking about. But I still didn't really know what that looked like and what that meant, what I needed to do about that. So I started I didn't quite go to the historical side yet. I looked at, could we know any of the attributes of God? And I believed at the very least you could get to God being a personal creator. And he has to be a personal creator, as in making a free choice, because if he didn't, the universe would exist co-eternally with God, unless he can choose to make it at a certain point in time. And then I also got to God being existence itself. So I think the Old Testament gets that right. And there are a couple things that you could finagle there with, like Thomas Aquinas, for example, talks about existence being convertible with goodness. So the more you exist or the more you are, the better you are, with God being infinitely perfectly good because he is infinite perfect existence. That gets a little philosophical. But once I got to that point of understanding a few different traits about God, particularly monotheism, then I could look at the historical cases for each of the major monotheistic religions and just see which one of them, if any, made sense. And when I say if any, that's why I say, like, if I wasn't Catholic, I wouldn't be Orthodox, I wouldn't be Protestant, I would be a deist.
Yeah.
I'd say the Catholic Church, in my opinion, has by far the best historical case for being the true religion of the monotheistic God. And if it's not that, like if Pope Leo comes out tomorrow and says, I, through the power invested in me, through Christ, through Peter, say that Jesus was not actually God, it's like, all right, well, strike that one off the list, and I would become a deist. But I moved pretty quickly past Judaism. I was stuck for a pretty decent while on Islam, which is funny because now I'm very convinced that Islam is not true. But it was a sticking point for a while. And then once I landed on Christianity, I moved pretty quickly through the Protestants. I didn't give as much time of day originally to Orthodoxy. I have since given it a lot more time of day, particularly because I know a lot of Orthodox people now, and I've walked with a couple of Orthodox people converting to Catholicism.
Interesting.
So I probably know the most about Orthodoxy out of all the denominations, besides Catholicism, obviously. And then I got to accepting the truth of the Catholic Church, and that is when I gave my life to Christ in this church.
Amazing.
A couple years ago.
Yeah. So one thing I found interesting about what you said there is the fact that you ruled out Judaism really fast, but you give Islam the time of day. In my brain, it's always been like, well, the Jewish people and Judaism ties into Christianity and Islam in the fact that it was God's first revelation of himself to people and to his creation. And that's where all of our old scripture comes from, things like that. for me, Islam was almost the easiest thing in the world to rule out. I think Islam was even easier to rule out than Mormonism for me, ironically, which Mormonism's second place. But just the fact that I saw so many contradictions with it in the way that God presented himself to Muhammad, in the way that it came from an angel, in the way that he came in fear. I was like, okay, this is a ridiculous thing. This is demonic. It's the first thing I thought, because you see nowhere else God coming with fear or an angel coming and striking fear into someone to do something for God.
Yeah, I mean, you do see, it is a very frequent theme in the Christian Bible that angels are met with fear, and they say, "Do not be afraid."
Exactly.
Which is a difference. But there is, to be fair to Islam, what got me stuck. The reason I ruled out Judaism is because almost nobody disputes most facts in the Old Testament. So like, Muslims will say that the Christian New Testament is like very corrupted, right? And that if it wasn't corrupted, you would see the lineage to Muhammad. But even though there are some things that they disagree with in the Old Testament, at least from my understanding, it's not as deep set as the New Testament. They are an Abrahamic religion, descended through Ishmael instead of Isaac. But that's a little bit of a different thing. The reason I moved past Judaism very quickly is because it's no longer a religion centered around a temple, and almost every Jew does not follow the ceremonial laws anymore. And so for me, this was like, it seems very clear that unless it's replaced with something else, these are like supposed to be perpetually enduring, and they are not. So the fact that most Jews seem to not care about a temple being in place at all, or the sacrifices that so necessarily take place at the temple, that was a big problem for me. I was like, you're missing the main, the main purpose of the Old Testament is, well, obviously now I say it's preparation for Christ, but secondarily, and for the people in the time, it was proper worship. And proper worship always centered around originally the tabernacle that was in the desert, and then the temple, which Solomon built in the second temple. So when you lose those things and you have no effort to bring them back, it's like you're missing something major here. And especially since most Jews believe that there are no longer any like great prophets, that was a big problem for me. I was like, there's a major shift here, and I don't see a proper justification for it. But what stuck with me with Islam, there are certain things that, from a Catholic perspective now, certainly seem like contradictions. But where I was coming from it at the time, the reason it stuck was twofold. First, because I did like a lot of their practices, which doesn't necessarily have to do with faith, but like the praying 5 times a day, facing towards the east, modest dressing, although obviously, without a doubt, the modest dressing goes too far in Islamic regimes, particularly for women. Yeah. But in general, modest dressing, like we're on a college campus, modest dressing does not exist here. So like that was attractive to me. Yeah. And excuse me. It was only when I realized that they mimicked most of those things from 5th century Christians. Particularly, I mean, praying 5 times a day, that's the liturgy of the hours. Yeah. Facing towards the east, towards Mecca. Ad Orientem, the liturgy Ad Orientem literally means towards the east. Like, I didn't know that. These are things that Christians did. So once I realized that you could kind of have your cake and eat it too in regards to the practices that I particularly was attracted to, because then like polygamy, I was not interested in. Some of the stuff with like very young betrothals, especially with Muhammad, I was not interested in that either. But the things I was intrigued by, the Catholic Church had too. But then the second sticking point was that I couldn't immediately rule out that just because something made me uncomfortable with Islam, particularly like God coming and stirring fear, that would make it incorrect. Because I could conceive, and something that I would say to atheists, like something I actually wish I could ask Alex O'Connor if I met him, is why is the problem of evil, like, why does it actually work? If you are a like serious philosophical, like you have a PhD in theology or in philosophy, and you're trying to argue against God, in theory, the argument for evil shouldn't work, because at worst, it shows that God is evil. It can't prove that God just doesn't exist, because you can conceive, at the very least you can conceive, and when I say prove, I mean like actually hardcore, definitively God doesn't exist because evil exists. Because you can conceive of a God whose idea of goodness just so radically differs from ours that it appears evil to us, but for a greater being, it's not. And that would be, I mean, it would be a problem for us because obviously it
Yeah.
wouldn't be the most fun, but it wouldn't stop God from existing. It would just,
Right.
God just would be a being that we're not particularly fans of.
I mean, there exists maybe a concept where God is still, of course, all powerful and we're still like under his domain, but maybe he's either not all loving or maybe his idea of all loving is different than ours.
Yeah.
But that doesn't lead you to atheism.
Right,
Still.
exactly. And that was what, particularly with Islam, I was like, I can't necessarily rule it out just because I don't like what it teaches. It was only when, I cannot remember, it's a Christian, I think he's Orthodox, I think he's Greek Orthodox, and he spends a lot of his time doing apologetics against Islam. I cannot for the life of me remember his name. He's quite popular on YouTube, so you can probably find what I'm talking about if you look for it. But he asked the question, in the Quran, it says that there's an unbroken line from Christ to Muhammad of true worshipers.
Yeah.
Where are they? Because from the way I see it, there is no Christian group, and we know even, like, and I'm not talking about the Orthodox Christian groups, like the people who were following directly from like Peter and the apostles down. I'm talking like even heretical sects.
Yeah.
I don't see a single heretical sect of Christianity, let alone Orthodox Christians, that in any way resemble Islam. And when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that is a problem. And that's more of a historical problem than it is a philosophical problem or a theological problem.
Right.
Although I think there are theological problems that do come up in the Quran. But that was the biggest thing that led me away, was I couldn't see the historical continuity when they claimed that there was one. And I realized that all of the practical things I really liked about Islam could be found within Christianity, particularly in the Catholic and Orthodox churches.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. The whole idea of authority and even like corruption of scripture, which is that's what Muslims would claim Christians have, but like the whole Islamic dilemma of the scripture and saying that Muhammad basically saying that Muslims should follow the scriptures of the Jews and the Christians. Yeah. They should believe in those two, and somehow those are complementary, even though they're actually contradictory of everything.
And Mormons say a similar thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, it is very interesting. Actually, it is funny how similar, like, there are obvious differences, don't get me wrong, but when you look into it, Mormonism and Islam are like, there are some funny similarities between
there really
the two
are.
religions. Which I don't, it's actually funny. I know a lot of people who know a lot about Mormonism and like talk to Mormons on campus and all this stuff. So I've kind of let them have that. And I haven't focused on them as much, but the stuff I do know, especially compared to Islam, it is funny how similar they are in certain ways.
Definitely. And I think Mormonism, aside from the whole scripture part, I think it adds a second dilemma, and that's the dilemma of like authority and like an apostate.
Yeah. Yeah, but the interesting thing, again, to be fair to Islam and the Mormons, is Jesus talks about you will know them by their fruit. Now, Islam, don't get me wrong, has some very evil regimes that do very terrible things, and they are certainly closer to a live by the sword religion than Christianity and Judaism are, even though both Christianity and Judaism have a history of doing things by the sword occasionally. Islam, it's a very core tenet, at least it seems.
Yeah.
And particularly the closer you get to Muhammad, the more core of a tenet it seems to be. But even with that granted, Islam has had a grip on the East for a very long time. And I mean, the Islamic Golden Age is so called because it was truly a golden age. And Mormonism, it's a similar thing. Mormons have some of the highest rates of births in the United States, of higher education in the United States, of reported happiness in the United States, lowest divorce. Like, both of those religions, even though I think they get very key things wrong, and particularly Islam, can be manipulated to be very evil. I think the Catholic Church could learn something from the way that they're acted out. They could perfect the imperfections there and get back on track with trying to dissuade people from living culturally Catholic lives and really being all in, like you see most Mormons are, like you see a lot of people in the East are with Islam. And of course, like I said, particularly with Islam, you do see it being manipulated into being evil. But you can't say that, like, Iran, for example, is culturally Muslim. It's definitely not.
Yeah.
They they live it out there, and it's the worst type of it being lived out, but it is lived out. Um, and Mormonism's a similar way.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Mormonism, I think, is when you look at, I guess, the fruits of a religion and group of people, I mean, it's kind of hard to deny that Mormons are like some of the nicest people you will meet.
Yeah, for sure.
Whether I think their theology is crazy or not, and very incorrect, that's another story, but certainly there's some fruits that come from it that we could probably learn from, like you were saying.
Yeah. Particularly when it comes to like church involvement and
Yeah.
having kids, getting married, like trusting. Particularly, I mean, the vocation of marriage, if you are called to that, is the avenue through which God will bestow grace on you for your own salvation. Like it is helpful to your own salvation. And I think like you just ask your average Catholic nowadays, like when they plan on getting married, and there is no difference between them and your average secular person who wants to wait longer and longer, not have
Unfortunately,
kids longer
yeah.
and longer. Whereas Mormons, they've got that one figured out, the nuclear family.
Yeah, I think there's been some kind of whole script pushed, especially the last 50 years, of making marriage, I guess, less of a priority.
Yeah.
And that somehow, I especially see this with the way women talk about it, and I guess a lot of men our age too. But somehow that like your career and money and everything is more important than your faith and
Yeah.
I guess getting married. Like,
Yeah, well, the problem is women talk about it like that, and men don't talk about it at all. So
exactly.
that,
Yeah.
that's the problem. Where, like I said, people need to understand just how important marriage is to your life. And I mean, I say this as someone who, it's funny, we haven't gotten into this yet, but like I did apply to seminary. And even though now I'm
Yeah.
quite certain of my vocation to marriage, applying to seminary was the best possible thing I could have done
Yeah.
to fall in love with marriage even deeper, because the way I approached priesthood was so different. Like that amount of radical self-sacrifice that I approached priesthood with
Yeah.
was so different. The way I approached marriage was how the culture approaches marriage, and that was make marriage work for you, which in a certain sense is true because, like I said, it is the avenue through which you are saved most perfectly, most properly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, marriage is the same type of radical self-sacrifice as the priesthood is. Just instead of sacrificing yourself on behalf of the church, you're doing it on behalf of one specific other person, ordered towards
Right.
the creation of life. And so when you ignore this, when you make marriage work for you, I mean, this is why the divorce rate's so high. If marriage is just for you, you will live an extremely unhappy life. You will get divorced because marriage isn't for you. Like, you are literally turning it completely on its head when you try to make it work for you, for your career, for your wants, for your desires. No, your desires belong to your spouse, and their desires belong to you. It is your job to fulfill their desires and their job to fulfill yours. It has nothing to do with, oh, I'll fulfill my desires first, and then whatever I have left, I'll give to you. No, you give everything to them first, and whatever's left over, that's for you to keep.
Yeah. Selfishness cannot exist.
No.
And I think that's one of the things that people, especially today, secular and even a lot of religious people who don't quite understand that, they talk about marriage as for me to feel this way, for me to be happy for the rest of my life. And of course, I mean, you can feel things and be happy, but it gets to a point where it's so far away from the core of what marriage is actually for. And it gets to the point where you're just basically essentially using the other person for yourself rather than laying yourself down for them.
Right. And that is also the beautiful thing about marriage. Like, it is meant to be an image, an imperfect image, don't get me wrong, but an image and a true image of the sacrifice of Christ on the cross for the church. Like, that's what it's meant to be. And when I think of the married couples I know, I mean, there are a few who certainly meet that mold. And the deeper I get into the Catholic Church, the more of those types of people I find.
Yeah, of course.
So, like, most Catholic couples I know, like culturally Catholic, middle-aged couples, you would never, if you were to ask them what their marriage is an image of, there is no way that they would, one, have the knowledge to be able to tie it to Christ at all, but their mind wouldn't even go there.
No,
Like,
it wouldn't
maybe they'd get to, oh, it's an image of love. And that's great, but when you don't know what love means, that's a meaningless statement.
Yeah.
It's a useless statement. To know that love, the highest form of love, that agape is self-sacrifice, if you do not know that, you will never truly love someone because it will always be focused on the feeling you have towards them rather the intentional disposition of placing them and their desire and their will over yours.
Yeah.
And I don't think practically any culturally Catholic person would ever come to that. Which, I mean, that's a big problem. That's why you see Catholic divorce rates are so high. Whereas if you look at Catholics who have both gone to confession in the last year, the divorce rate's like 2%.
Yeah.
And then the culturally Catholic divorce rate is like the same as the secular one.
Of course, yeah.
It's, if you don't, like I said, you're either all in or you're all out.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
And something I always go back to with this, I think men and women today definitely both have their own very different vices and very different things they struggle with, but I especially see that among the women our age. And this has frustrated me before. Now, granted, there's a lot to be frustrated about what guys do too, but
Hard for us to be frustrated about that.
yeah, of course, yeah, because we're doing it. But no, but with women, it seems so much like marriage and everything has become almost a form of vanity, where they a lot of them I talk to, they see it as something to make them look good, something to only make them happy, and everything is sort of them, and I don't see a lot of that imitation of, for example, like imitation of God's love. I don't see a lot of the thought of joining together in a sacrificial way. I don't see a lot of sacramental marriage. I don't see that being kind of the mindset towards it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There is certainly a culture of like, if he wanted to, he would, or like, like you deserve better. But and then you see the opposite side of that with men of, like I said, just not thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
Or you see these.
Yeah.
What's particularly painful, like, so sometimes you'll see men who just roll over and let their girlfriends do whatever they want. And that kind of gets closer to what you were saying, where maybe, and then the other side of that coin is the relationships where it's those perpetual dating. They've been living together for 5 years. They've been dating for 9. The woman's like, oh, I'm sure he'll propose at some point. It's like, no, girl, he will not propose. He spent 9 years. And you see so many of these. And it's like, those two types of relationships, they cannot end in happiness. Like, no. Never will it end in happiness. I don't even know why you would end up getting married at that point. Like, it is just going to end in heartbreak because it's not built on the right thing. I mean, forget even talking about, like, God being at the center of the relationship, which obviously that's the most important thing. Yes. But, like, even secularly, because marriage does exist. It's not a sacrament in the secular world, but true marriages do exist. Marriage bonds do exist secularly. Yeah. Like, the marriages that work in the secular world are those that figure out that you have to put the spouse over yourself. Yeah. And that just, I feel like that's either people aren't realizing it as much nowadays or people don't care about that and aren't like going for that. But I mean, really, it is the least surprising thing of all time that marriage rates are going down, that people are waiting longer to get married, and that less children are happening because people aren't truly being bonded in the proper way anymore.
Yeah. I get that, and I've had some very harsh language to describe how men and women are today in regards to dating and marriage. Like, it's something that's always frustrated me a lot. But I mean, the way I see it, to be honest, is a lot of men have just porn brains when they look at women. Yeah. Like, I know that sounds harsh, but that's really the lens they look at them through.
No, that's another big problem, especially the age in which men are exposed to that.
Yeah.
No, that's a big problem, particularly because it just completely warps. You cannot love someone sacrificially if you don't see them as a person truly for what they are in the first place. Mm-hmm. And even the best intentioned of men, I mean, they're called vices for a reason. Like St. Paul describes it as the thorn in his side. Obviously, he's not referencing pornography, but he calls it a thorn in his side. Like, these are not just things that, oh, I fall into this occasionally. Like, it traps you. It limits your ability to think. When, like, even Thomas Aquinas talks about lust literally makes you dumber. Lust prevents you from using your reason and your rational faculties in the proper way. Like you are no
Absolutely.
longer capable of ordering your life properly when you're ensnared by lust. So yeah, pornography is definitely a problem for our young men nowadays, even our
Yeah,
older men.
for sure. And this is something that it really hits me close to home because I have been that guy who's looking at girls and using relationships for the wrong reason, and I've been all of that in the past. And even now that I know what's right and I know what you should look for and that type of things, it's sort of still a part of it's still ingrained for me. Like there's still an ongoing process of healing. Like it's
Yeah.
really damaging to the person.
Yeah. And it damages both people, right?
Yeah.
And that's another thing, kind of going back to my conversion story. I mentioned how I was told I was given a good Catholic education, and then I started seeing some objections that made me question it. But if I'm being completely honest, um, that was actually more of a symptom than the root cause. Like I said, I received the Eucharist in a state of mortal sin for about 2 years,
Me too.
and maybe even longer than that. And it didn't even occur to me to go to confession during that time.
Yeah.
And like I said, St. Thomas Aquinas says, it renders you incapable. Not just makes it difficult, although it does. It makes you incapable of properly ordering your life, of thinking truly rationally.
Yeah.
And so I can't say for certain that I wouldn't have left the church if I wasn't living in a state of mortal sin for so long, but certainly my path would have been radically different. And the
Yeah.
Lord used all of it.
For sure.
Like if I would have remained a cultural Catholic my whole life, like I said, you're either all in or you're all out.
Right.
So thanks be to God almost. I don't know if I should say that or not because, like I said, I did leave and I shouldn't have done that. But at the same time, he used that for good. I mean, look where I am now. Like I never would have applied to seminary. In high school, I never could have dreamed, even when I was not like fully out the door, never would have dreamed that I would apply to seminary.
Me
And
either. I
then-
didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, I mean, I knew what it was, but I never would have thought to actually do it, especially with just how enamored I was with women at the time. But the Lord really does use all of that. And even though it was a painful process, certainly, and it still is in a lot of ways, yeah, I do wonder how different that journey would have looked like if I never would have been in that like extended state of mortal sin.
Absolutely. That's another thing I was going to ask you was like, if you had never fallen away, do you think your faith would have been as strong as it is now, even if you were led back to it being the truth and jumping all in? Do you think that reversion kind of was like fuel on the flame that it needed?
Yeah. That's a hard question because it wouldn't just have to be the situation that was different, like I would have to be different.
Yeah.
Because one of the gifts that the Lord has given me is, well, sometimes it's a gift, sometimes it's a curse. Like I said, when that itch is there, I have to. Like it's I can't sleep at night if I don't, you know? And so me falling away started the ball rolling. So I can't really imagine a situation where if that itch wasn't there for me. Like some people, they live their lives. You talk to these people and you'll say, oh yeah, I'm like super Catholic, I'm applying to seminary. And they might even hate the Catholic Church, but what they'll say to you, and they'll mean it too, they'll be like, oh, good for you. But you do you. You're like, oh, that's great that you found that.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it? Like, if you think the Catholic Church is evil, if you hate the Catholic Church, why in the world would it be good for me to give my life to it? You know? But I think you see that a lot in classes, or like I'm a philosophy minor, and my like 100 level philosophy courses, like it was pretty obvious that these people had never thought about questions like this in their life. Like forgetting even God, but just like deep questions in general. And so if I didn't have this disposition, I don't know where I'd be. Now, obviously, I trust in the Lord. I know He gives every single person the grace necessary to come to Him before they die. So it's possible that I would have come to Him some other way.
Right, of course.
And And don't get me wrong, even though I was myself culturally Catholic, my parents both live out their faith very well.
Okay.
And they
Yeah.
do so increasingly well as time goes on. So, Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, I appreciate the witness that you've given to me.
Praise God.
But yeah, so I can't say that like they could have been a catalyst as well down the line. It kind of just depends, but certainly it can be said that it would have been a very different journey at the very
Right.
least, and it is possible I never would have. Like
Mm.
if I just rejected that grace in the first place to even start a little bit, like who knows, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's difficult to say.
The reason I asked that is because when I kind of think about my own path, my path to truly living the faith is definitely a little different than yours in the fact that I was never atheist for even a second in my life.
Mhm.
I always believed, but I was filling the hole that so desired God's love in my heart with a million other things that
Yeah.
would never lead me to Him. And it was eventually from the culmination of all of that that led to the lowest possible point for me. And then for me, it wasn't about a search for truth. It wasn't even about reason or philosophy, anything. It was purely like an emotional matter,
Hmm.
and it was finding something to make me feel worth, feel loved, and that's ultimately what led me to truly living the faith.
Yeah. See, I always love hearing stories about that because that's just not like how my brain works, you know?
Yeah, of
And so,
course.
like, I wish I've had very emotional experiences with God, but they weren't. One of the things I asked God when I was reverting, because occasionally I would pray. Like, while I was
Hmm.
unsure, I would still pray.
Yeah.
And I'd do the thing where it was like, God, if you're out there, blah, 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 blah. But one of the things I told him, and that, I mean, obviously he knew the whole time was on my heart, um, was that I didn't want to come to the church for a reason that I could doubt later. And for
Hmm.
me, like just the way my brain
Yeah.
works, sometimes those deep emotional experiences, like actually, I have a good example. I've actually only told one person about this ever before,
Yeah.
but when I was about 9 or 10, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I was still Catholic at this point. I mean, this was before high school. I mean, 9 or 10. You don't really have time to question things yet.
Yeah.
um, I've never met a staunch atheist at 9 or 10.
It's what your parents instill in
Yeah,
you at that point.
exactly. So, but I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had this only what I can describe as an otherworldly experience where I just felt this intense presence of evil in the room with me.
Hmm.
And and I mean, people might laugh at this, and also, like, most people listening to this probably don't know me super well. But for those people who do know me, I'm a very rational person.
Yeah.
I knew for certainty that I was going to die before I woke up the next day. And I can't prove that, obviously. I can't, like,
Yeah.
convince you of that. All I can say is that is what I knew that to be the case. Like, I've never before or since felt anything even remotely similar to that. And that was like 11 years ago. I can feel it as strong
Mm.
as it was that night. And all I did was I prayed 10 Hail Marys. And as soon as it came after the 10th Hail Mary, it was gone. And I mean, like, gone. And just
Yeah.
complete peace replaced it.
Wow.
But, like, that religious experience, I bring that up because at subsequent times in my life, even though I can feel it as real as it was in that moment right now when I describe it, I've had times in my life where I doubted that it even happened in the first place. Like, that it wasn't just a dream or that something, like I just convinced myself I was lucid, something, you know?
Hmm.
Even though I've never had another experience like that at all.
Yeah.
And, you know, maybe that is the case. I don't think so, but maybe it is. I didn't want my faith to be based on something like that I could doubt later.
Right.
And so the Lord, He knew me before I was ever even made. And He gave me my mind. He gave me
Yeah.
a very rational and a very tempered personality to kind of go after it by what, in my opinion, what was more objective. But I do
Yeah.
also love hearing, like William Lane Craig, for example, he gave his life to Christ because of an emotional
Hmm.
response. And now he's one of the, I mean, I think he's, like I said, I disagree with him on things. He's not Catholic, I am. But he's one of the greatest intellectual minds of the Christian tradition.
Yeah.
Like you, I mean, I've talked to you a lot about Christianity, about Catholicism. Like you have the intellectual side down, but it was all instigated by an
Yeah.
emotional experience. That's always been really interesting to me.
I can say for sure, I think my personality and the way my brain works is very different from yours in the sense that I did not start out rational about anything at all. Purely was from an emotional side. But I think God gives us these ways in which we work and ways in which our mind processes things, ultimately because he knows that's the way that's best suited for us.
Yeah.
And a little bit of background on myself is I haven't told many people this, but the way kind of my brain works and the way my faith conversion started is as a kid and especially as a young teenager, I always had crippling anxiety for probably 10 years. It got to the point where I've had certain days, it's been a few years, but I've had certain days where my anxiety was so bad I didn't even know how to speak. Like I couldn't even speak properly at times. And I also have if you know what BP is, borderline personality disorder. I have borderline personality disorder. So whenever I feel emotions, I feel 10 times higher or 10 times lower. I'm not a mellow person ever.
Yeah.
And this is where it started for me. That's the way my brain worked.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting because from that is where I needed the most healing, but also from that struggle is what led me to the truth and is what led me to having a strong faith. So it's interesting how he uses things in different ways.
Yeah. Each has its own path.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and another thing that's cool about that too is when it talks about like our evangelistic opportunities are going to look very different. Like,
Definitely.
Like the way, particularly like, I mean, you know how I lead Bible study. Excuse me. It's very, I almost act like a teacher sometimes. Where like someone will ask a question about like, oh, what does this objectively mean? What is it talking about? What's the context? And I can just give that to them. I'm not as good with like the emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And so, but like there are a lot of people out there, and especially like if I were to talk to someone in the new atheist movement, it's pretty unlikely, especially if they're like a staunch atheist. Most people I know who are the most affected by the problem of evil are agnostic.
Yeah.
It just, the problem of evil makes them so uncomfortable that they're not willing to stake their place in the earth about yes, it definitely got to exist. But like the hardcore atheists who are like, God is a delusion, it is silly to believe in God, like it is ridiculous, it's the opiate of the masses, like all this stuff. I am an example of someone going from that to believing and showing that there is a connection between rationality and faith, a strong connection. You can't have one without the other. And so like the Lord, and I've seen this in my life, it honestly is crazy that I was thinking back on this the other day. I've really only been like a hardcore Catholic for 2 years. And the things that have happened in those 2 years, particularly the last 14 or so months have been wild. Like
me too. Just
the amount of things that the Lord puts in your life that you wouldn't even think you could handle, and then you just look back and you're like wow, all those things happened to me. Like I did all those things, and just the opportunities, the people He's placed in my life, the conversations He's placed in my life, the things that He's just allowed to happen have all been ordered around the gifts He's given me. Whereas like, and even my roommates, for example, like Lucas, he's very smart, and he also knows the intellectual side like I do, but he's a people person first, not a facts person first.
Yep.
And I've seen that like both of our Bible studies are huge for two completely different reasons. He goes after the people. They see this guy, they go, wow, this is a great guy. This is a happy guy. I want what he has. And that just draws people to him. And then me, I can't say people are drawn to me as much as they are to Lucas. That's certainly not the case. But people are drawn to the answers that I seem to have. Like, he seems to know what he's talking about, at least in a little bit. Like, I would never say that I'm an expert on the Catholic Church or on Christianity, on philosophy. Like I said, I'm minoring in it in college. Like, there are so many people who know more than me. Yeah. But I still have the answers that particularly people who haven't questioned these things at all, that's just an attractive thing to them right now. And Lord has made the most of those opportunities.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, when it comes to finding the Catholic Church and looking into the truth of the Catholic Church, I hear conversions, especially from Protestants, coming from two different places. The main one, the number one, and this is what a lot of priests have told me as well, is that people convert to Catholicism because of the Eucharist.
Yeah.
Not just because of they believe that it's true, but usually because of experiences with it,
Yeah.
or emotions, or prayer with it, prayer and adoration, things like that. The second reason I see people convert to Catholicism is authority. And
Yes.
so my dad is one of these, actually. My dad, he grew up in a Bible thumping, I guess you call it Bible thumping fundamental Baptist church.
Sure, yeah.
I like to say Baptist, but so to him, he always was like, well, it's interesting because you can't disagree with the preacher at his church, and it's almost like he's his own pope.
Yeah.
So when authority came up, that was kind of the appeal to Catholicism.
Yeah.
Is it's true because it's the true authority.
Yeah. That's me for sure.
That's
The
you.
second one.
Yeah.
See, and it's actually funny because the person who convinced me most of the authority, well, there were a couple people, but one of the most influential people of convincing me of the authority of the Catholic Church is Dr. John Bergsma at Franciscan. And he has several books. The one I would recommend most is A Catholic Introduction to the Bible, the Old Testament. It's like an 1,100-page volume. It's meant to be a textbook, but very, very in-depth analysis on the Old Testament. But anyway, he was a Protestant who converted. And the funny thing was, he used a Eucharistic conversion story, at least to some extent. I know, obviously, he thought about the authority too, but primarily his story revolves around a Eucharistic experience. And he is the person who showed me all the authoritative stuff, which is what got me into it. So I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly, well, and it kind of makes sense when you look at my journey too, because I was searching for capital T truth. Well, and the first question you have to ask is, who is the arbiter of capital T truth? I mean, obviously, ultimately, it's God, and any Christian would tell you that. But who is the worldly promulgator of that truth?
Of course.
And to me, the historical case for, well, most Protestants wouldn't even have as strong of an authoritative view. I mean, they'd say that the Bible is the ultimate authority.
Of course.
And of course, they all say that there are legitimate worldly authorities. But talking infallibly, it'd be only the Bible.
Yeah.
And so that was just something that was distasteful to me. I mean, Dr. John Bergsma, I don't know if he coined this term, but I heard it first from him. He uses the term verses, verses, verses. So when you see like debates between different Protestants, this side has verses, this side has verses, and they just go at it. And it's like, where do we stop? You know, like,
right.
And especially, I talked to I think this was first semester last year, my sophomore year. One of my roommates met a Baptist preacher on campus, and he invited him to dinner with me. He said, hey, my roommate would probably like to enjoy talking with you. Do you want to just go to dinner with him? The Baptist preacher said yes. And it was a thing where, like, we got to talking about authority. We got to talking about the verses of Peter. Some of them, I think, are a little bit hard to argue against the Catholic side. But there are certainly verses that you can read the Protestant side into it. And so the question I had for him was, like, listen, I hear what you're saying. Like, I hear why you might not want to read Peter into this, or why you might not want to read supreme Petrine authority into this, or even the authority of the episcopate in general. But surely you at least see where I'm coming from with what I say, and that I'm not irrational for reading the Bible in this way. And so then the question becomes, which one of us is actually right? Because if there is no supreme authority, and I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, you know this, there is no right answer. There can't be. Or even if there is a right answer, there's no way to actually figure it out. And that was a big problem for me. And then the answer to the Eucharist was easy, because it was, the Catholic Church is the authority. Well, here's what they say about it.
That's interesting.
Which I know from someone who's not Catholic, that's going to sound insane that it really is that easy for me to follow the Catholic Church and what they say. But like, from an internal Catholic perspective, if you're not following the church like that, you're going to live a miserable life. And you see this with stuff like the Latin Mass. I love the Latin Mass. Yeah. I go as frequently as I can. But if you're going to sit here and you're going to leave the Catholic Church because of the Latin Mass, you have that little faith in the papacy, in the Holy Spirit, you have that little faith in God, you're going to live an unhappy life. I've never met a schismatic who's just bubbling forth with joy. You know, like there's always something. There's always something. But then you meet Catholics who are in the Catholic Church and they just love the Latin Mass. Most
Yeah.
of them, hopefully, I mean, if they're not happy people, they might want to change something,
It's
you know?
like it's so frustrating to me when I see the whole like people having a problem with the
Yeah.
Novus Ordo or people having a problem
We're
with
going to
the
insert Catholic Church teaching
with the
here.
TLM. It's like, okay, so you're going to believe in the Catholic Church, you're going to believe in its authority, but then as soon as you get to Vatican II, it's like,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh, it's
now I'm
impossible.
scared, yeah.
This time, and especially you look back
The
at
Mass
church
isn't
history,
valid, you know?
like, when I looked back, when I did get into Orthodoxy after I was already Catholic, like, there was a time where a majority of the bishops in the East were Arian. Like, a majority were heretics.
Yeah.
It's like, you think today's worse? Really? Like, you think today's worse because of the liturgy, which the Pope has absolute authority to do whatever he wants with? Pope Leo could come out tomorrow and completely rewrite the liturgy. That is within his rights to do so. I mean, obviously there are core parts of it that can't change, like the Eucharist, like the consecration, but that is fully within his power to do so.
Yeah.
It baffles me sometimes. And again, this is coming from someone, I love the Latin Mass. Like,
me too,
if I was
yeah.
born in 1910, oh my gosh, you know, like that'd be amazing. I'd love to go to Latin Mass every day of my life. But it is absolutely preposterous to me that some people stake their faith on the change of the liturgy. Like, even if it was completely wrong, that's a prudential decision. They're absolutely
It's
like
like-
authority to do that.
Even if you think it's wrong, it's like, where has your faith truly gone if you have no faith in the church anymore?
Or like think of like when the missionaries in Japan were killed, and then like hundreds of years later, or at least decades, I can't actually remember the exact time frame, but I think it was like 200 years past, the missionaries come back and they find that there are Catholic communities still living on. They didn't have a single sacrament except matrimony, because the couple was the arbiter of that sacrament in the Catholic Church, or at least in the West. The only sacrament they had was baptism and marriage. And they remained Catholic for 200 years. It's like, you think you have bad? You still have the sacraments, even if you don't like the way they're performed.
Yeah.
Some people lived their whole life, and all they had was their baptism, which they don't even remember at birth, and their marriage. And that's it. They don't get confession.
Right.
They don't get the Eucharist. They don't have priests, like, to do, like, they got nothing, you know? And you get it all. And you're going to leave the church because you don't like the way that it's, I mean, it's Protestant. It's Protestantism. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
These schismatic sects, they're Protestant.
Yeah.
Like, and then they'll hate on Lutherans and they'll hate on Baptists. It's like, that's you, buddy. You know, like,
Hey, you heard it here first. SSPX, you're Protestant.
they're getting there, especially if they make these new bishops and
Right. Like I heard a lot. I don't know how to what degree of it is true or how they're actually doing it, but I heard they were thinking about consecrating bishops without the Pope's
I'm not thinking
approval.
about it. They're going to,
Oh yeah. Well, there you go.
unless they change their mind, but I
Yeah.
don't think they're going to.
Yeah, definitely. So back to the at one time you thought about discerning priesthood and you actually did apply for seminary.
Mhm.
Tell me about what made you get to that.
Oh boy, that's a long story too. So that was a long time coming. It's always interesting. I think it's a very common theme among reverts and converts to think about the priesthood.
Yeah.
Because it's very common for reverts and converts to just, they come in on fire, you know, which is great. I love that. And most of them keep, or at least hopefully most of them keep that fire throughout their whole life. I mean, that's what you want. That's the fire of the Holy Spirit. But you get to this point in your conversion where you're like, oh, hold on, like, this priesthood's a real thing, or this religious life's a real thing. Like, I should probably give this the time of day. And since you're already on fire, excuse me, and you've just been going and going and going for a year, 2 years, whatever it is, it seems like you have to say yes to this too. And I'm speaking in hindsight here. This wasn't clear to me at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But about a year after my reversion, maybe a little bit more, certainly longer from my original like prompting, but from my official like giving my life to Christ first semester of my freshman year, it had been about a year since that. And I went on a silent retreat run by St. Paul's, and I was dating someone at the time. We'd been dating for about a year and a half at that point. And I remember just thinking, like, this is probably something I need to figure out. Like, at least make sure. Like, even if I'm called to marriage, I need to make sure. And so I went to spiritual direction on the silent retreat, kind of talked to him about it. He gave me some good advice. And I went, all right, great, I'll think about this. And then I didn't think about it for like 6 months. And
Yeah.
I never faced it, whatever. Well, then I went to the National Eucharistic Congress in the summer. And seeing all those priests religious there, I mean, it was beautiful. I don't know, did you go to the...
Nope.
Okay. Well, it was really it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And I just got to see the priesthood in a unique way there that made me just fall in love. And seeing how many priests there that were there, like just the massive community and brotherhood that was there, I just started to fall in love with that. And that was the point where I started, like when we got back from the Eucharistic Congress, I told my girlfriend, I was like, hey, this is a bit of a real thing, like I'm thinking about. And she was she's super Catholic. And so she understood as well as she could. Of course, that's not the thing that you want to hear from your boyfriend is, hey, I love you and we've been dating for almost 2 years, but I might be called to be a priest. So I'm sure that, I know that was pretty hard for her. But yeah, so again, it was the thing, that time was much longer. Like the first time was like a week, maybe 2 weeks. This was like a month, maybe a month and a half. And I went to spiritual direction again. I got some good advice. I was like, all right, I'll sit with this in prayer. This will be good. And then I didn't. And I just let it fall away again. Well, then we get to Advent of that year, December 1st. I don't know what happened, but one of the things that I did with my roommates that Advent is we prayed night prayer together. And something inside me just like exploded on December 1st, 2024. I'll never forget, like that whole Advent was just, or actually this would have been, 2024. December 1st, 2024 was the start of Advent. The first Sunday was on December 1st. And just that whole Advent, oh my gosh, like the desire to be a priest just kept growing and growing and growing. And I was like, all right, I have to do something about this. I went to spiritual direction like 3 or 4 more times until I was certain, like, I have to do something about this.
Yeah.
And so I broke up with my girlfriend that January, late January. And the Saturday, I broke up with her on a Wednesday. The Saturday after I broke up with her, I started the application process to seminary. I called the director of seminaries of my diocese, the promoter of priestly vocations in my diocese. The director of seminaries, that was later. 2 made up titles. But I was in contact with him, and he was like, all right, you want to apply? I was like, sure. So I started applying, and if I'm being honest, that was hard. Because breaking up with my girlfriend, in hindsight, it's all in the Lord's plan. Like that needed to happen.
Yeah.
Not that there was a bad relationship or anything, but like I said, just all in the Lord's plan. But like that was probably the hardest thing I've ever done because it was purely based on faith. It's not like I was looking at the relationship and I wasn't happy with it. It was purely because I thought God was calling me to do this thing right now.
Yeah.
And like doing something just based on faith, especially for someone like me who's so practical and like wants to be rational all the time, it was very, very difficult. And then that whole application process, like kind of just that uncertainty of, okay, what am I called to do? Like I have this desire for the priesthood that's so strong, but I also have this desire for marriage that seems like equally as strong. Mm-hmm. And so it was that was a hard time.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I knew once I started the application process, I was going to see it through. I wasn't going to back out. I knew I had to figure it out and that the journey was just going to be really hard, but I stuck with it, went all the way through, got to the meeting with Bishop. Meeting with Bishop went really well, and then found out a couple weeks later that they wanted me to at least wait 2 more years until I finished my degree. And they mentioned that because it was actually not just Bishop, it was a whole group of people, and one of them was my pastor who I'm very close with, and he told me that they could tell I was really struggling with it, and they basically gave me permission to not be a priest, if that makes sense. Right. Because in my head I was like, I have to, like I'm so into my faith. I know so many people are. Yeah. Like I have to. It's the next step. Right. And it's like, no, marriage is an avenue for perfection in Christ. Marriage is a true vocation given to people who are insanely involved in the church. Like it's not just priests that are very involved. It's not just religious. Yeah. Married people, you're either all in or you're all out. it was an invitation for me to be all in while not being a priest. And even though it wasn't a hard no, like technically it was a deferral.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to like toot my own horn or anything, but the people I talk to, I'm very close with a lot of people in the office of the bishop and the priests in that diocese. Like I do think I'd make a good priest, and I think that they think that as well.
Yeah.
But if that's not what I'm called to, that's not what I'm called to.
Right.
And just gradually after that no, I become more and more certain that I'm not called to the priesthood. Certain enough that I'm in a new relationship now, and just, I mean, hopefully you can hear in the way I talk about marriage how in love with that sacrament I am.
Definitely.
Which, don't get me wrong, I adore the priesthood as well. Well, I shouldn't say adore, but I love the priesthood. It is such a beautiful thing, and to be called to that would be such an honor.
Yeah.
But I think part of what I was so attracted to in the priesthood was very prideful. I was attracted to being great.
Ooh, yeah. I see what you mean.
Which is a good thing, but we're called to be great in the way that God calls us to be great. And sometimes being great is very small. It's a very specific sacrifice for a specific person. I wanted to just be out there. I wanted to be a public saint, you know?
Yeah.
And that was very prideful. And I didn't realize that until I grew comfortable not being a priest again. I realized like a lot of the reason I wanted to be a priest is because I wanted to be known and I wanted to be great and I wanted to be seen as this epitome of holiness and self-sacrifice and all this stuff. And that's not what the priesthood is. The priesthood is a life lived for Christ. And even though I knew that, and even though I was genuinely pursuing that, I was also pursuing that self-love of promulgating myself on behalf of Christ. Marriage, it would be much more difficult for me to do that because your spouse, I mean, say what you will, your congregation only sees a certain side of you when you're a priest. They see the best side, and that's important because priests are a good example for people.
Yes.
Your spouse sees everything.
Right.
And it is impossible for me to fake being great to my spouse because they will see if I'm living for pride or if I'm living for them. Yeah. And so the Lord in his providence, I mean, like I said, maybe I am called to be a priest. We'll see. I very much so doubt it. But whatever, all in the Lord's will. But I think the avenue of marriage is, for me, what my human pride needs.
Ooh, man. That's interesting. Yeah. Wow. I really see that because some of my own experience and my own desires are kind of a mirror of yours. In the sense that, so I guess for those people watching, I am discerning priesthood right now. I have been seriously for at least a few months. And one thing for me is whenever I was getting serious into my faith, I was looking for that, I guess, proper avenue to go down to is like, how am I going to serve God in my life? It's like, God, here I am, use me for whatever you will. And I have always wanted marriage, but I realized that sometimes the reasons I date, the reasons I wouldn't say idolize that, though I think maybe I did idolize women at one point. The reason I do that is maybe so I can feel loved, maybe not so
you can love someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Because just with the way I was raised and with especially the event that ultimately led to my kind of reversion, it was about filling something in myself, filling a hole that nothing else could fill except Jesus. And when I sort of looked at marriage that way, it was like, okay, here's your wife. She's going to make you happy, yada, yada. And obviously I knew the correct answers. I knew the things. Well, I knew the things that it was supposed to be about sacrifice. I knew it was supposed to be this model of God's love. But ultimately, maybe that's not where my mind actually was, even though that's what I was saying I was trying to do.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. Sometimes there's motives in your subconscious that you're not going to verbalize, but really they're there pushing you to do things. And of course, for the longest time, the thought of priesthood bugged me and it just would not come back. So that's ultimately why I decided to discern it. But I think that priesthood it's a way for me to serve the Lord in spite of my, I guess, ulterior motives of, I guess, selfishness, what I wanted out of marriage and out of a vocation.
Yeah. No, it's hard, especially because, like you said, you do really know the right way. Like, I did know that the priest, like Fulton Sheen says, the priest is not his own. Like, I knew that even when I was
Yeah.
applying. Um, but yeah, the problem is ultimately, like, how do you act? And that's not always as clear. And I mean, actually sacrificing is really difficult. And that's why, like, with marriage, like I said, it's not possible for me to be prideful in the way I was tempted to be prideful in the priesthood, which is why I think marriage would be so good for me.
Yeah.
And actual genuine sacrifice, like, is really hard. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm excited, and like truly, I am excited to give myself entirely to my spouse in marriage, whenever that is and whatever that looks like. But like, I also recognize at the same time, like, that's hard. Like, the reason I look forward to it is because I know that ultimately it is beautiful. That, like, to love another more than yourself is beautiful. It is good. It is something you'll be rewarded for in heaven.
Yeah.
And it's the way that God loves us. And so those are the reasons I look for it. But I certainly don't look forward to, like, how difficult it's going to be. You know, like that.
Yeah.
It will be hard.
Yeah. And I think, like I was saying, kind of the way I'm a mirror of you in that experience is that I think my pride most comes out when it comes to dating and discerning marriage, where you were talking about how maybe there was an element of pride involved with priesthood for you.
Yeah.
I've had, like, pretty much the opposite experience.
Yeah. It's crazy how, like I said, we all have our own path.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is nice.
And I still don't know mine. Like,
yeah. You don't know until you're at the altar. Because
no,
you'll be at
of
the
course.
altar whether you're a priest or you're married. So you don't
Exactly.
know until you're there.
Like, I think I'll probably know once I'm laying down on the ground like
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
But,
exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
Or whether I'm facing the other person there. But kind of the way it's evolved. I've always thought about my vocation, especially the last year, in percentages. Originally, about a year ago, I was 90% marriage, 10% priesthood.
Yeah, yeah.
And whenever I finally decided to start taking it seriously, I was, whether I liked it or not, I was 80% priesthood and 20% marriage, which terrified me.
Yeah.
And then throughout my discernment process, it's been a little up and down, but certainly I think whenever I started it, I was about 50-50. I was like, I don't know.
That was me. That's when I knew I had to take the jump, was when I was like, oh, it's like 50.
When you're so 50-50, it's like you just have to see, because at that point it's,
you have to move. Yeah. There's this book, what's it called? I cannot remember what it's called, but it's a very popular book by a rector at a seminary. Man, it'll come to me. So in like 15 minutes, I'll just be like, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
But it's a book about discerning the priesthood.
To Save 1,000 Souls.
To Save 1,000 Souls, yes.
I read it.
Thank you. To Save 1,000 Souls is so beautiful because he says this constantly. God can't move a parked car. Well, obviously he can, but the point of what he said was, you have to just move. You can't sit in that uncertainty because nothing's going to happen. Like, I mean, very rarely people do have experiences where, like, it comes to them. But our vocation, it's a gift for us to unwrap. And so if we're just sitting there looking at it thinking, oh, what's inside this beautifully wrapped box with a bow on top, well, it's not going to open itself.
No.
You know, I mean, if it needs to, if you are the type, if your priesthood's going to save 500,000 people, maybe God will hit you over the head with a, wooden beam. But typically, he's going to let you open that gift, and he's going to let you say no to it.
Yeah.
Even though you would be happier, even though it would be better for you to accept his will for you, we have free will. Like, he allows us to say no to the vocation he offers us. But just staring there at that wrap present, it's not going to open itself. Like, it is for us to open. And it's not always going to be easy, but it is a gift. And that's, I think, I had to remind myself of that when I was discerning priesthood, and now even when I'm discerning marriage. Like, you have to just keep going. Because even if you apply to seminary, it's the hardest thing you ever will do in your life, which for me up until this point it was.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best thing I ever did as well. Like I've said this so many times, December 1st, 2024 to November 30th, 2025, which was the start of Advent this year, was the best. It was both the hardest by far year of my life, and it was the best year by far of my life because I just kept trying things. I kept doing things. I kept moving. Some of the things were wrong, for sure. But even when I chose wrong while trying to pursue the Lord's will, and He used it for good. He said, oh, no, that wasn't right.
Of course.
That wasn't right, buddy, but this is right. So come back to me here. Come back to me here.
Whether you went about it all right or not, you had, I'd say, a very successful discernment.
Yes,
right.
Certainly. And even though it didn't go the way, I couldn't have thought up in any way the way it would have gone. Like it was, every inch of it was completely a surprise to me.
Yeah.
And yet it worked out perfectly as it needed to. I'm so glad. Again, even though I think I'm like 99 to 1% for marriage to priesthood now. Discerning priesthood was the best thing I could have ever possibly done for my future wife, like without question. Not necessarily that it will be the case for everyone that they need to apply, but for me, it is the best thing I could have possibly done for my wife is to apply to seminary.
Absolutely.
I'm not married. I'm talking about my wife in the future tense, to be clear.
Of course.
But, yeah.
Yeah. And then one thing that I've ran into and a lot of people run into, I want to know how this experience was for you compared to me, but obviously when you're discerning, your prayer life is a very important thing. And that obviously you want to talk to God about your vocation. You want to remain, I guess, focused on Him. Like my favorite quote about prayer is a surge of the heart towards heaven. Mm-hmm. You want your heart to be surging toward heaven and your discernment. Where did, I guess, the kind of answers that come from that develop? How did it look? Like when you first started praying about it, look into it, were you getting different answers compared to where you were towards the end of your discernment?
Different answers.
Because how did the answers to your prayers evolve?
Yeah. That's a great question. There's a couple avenues I could go to this. There are two things I'm absolutely certain I did right. Mm-hmm. And that was, I never doubted that I needed to break up with my girlfriend, and I never doubted that I needed to apply to seminary. And those two things were very connected. Like I said, it took me 3 days to start the application after breaking up with my girlfriend. And actually, and to be clear, that's very out of the norm to get out of a relationship and into priesthood that fast. It was because I'd already been discerning in a relationship for about 6 months. Yeah. And that I literally only broke up with her for that. Like, it's not like she broke up with me and then I was like, I guess I'll be a priest, like, like, no, it was very intentionally for that reason, with the permission of my spiritual director. Permission's a weird word, but like with the helpful discernment of my spiritual director as well. That's why I did it so quickly. But even though that was so hard, I'm certain I was supposed to do those two things. And I never doubted that. So even when I was 3 months into the application process, and I was like dying. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm just so lost. I have no idea. I knew I just needed to keep going forward. So that never changed for me. I'm trying to think like the day-to-day. I don't think I was getting different answers in prayer. Like I always knew the end goal. And I always knew that if I kept moving, God would reveal it. And that's the beautiful thing as well. There is no vocation that you discern alone. The church is necessary in discernment. And I don't just mean like you should utilize the church. Like, no, they have a stake in every vocation. The bishop has to say yes to you becoming a priest. Yes. I mean, he does it himself. The bishop has to say yes to you becoming a religious or the head of the order, like whatever. The church has to say yes. Even with marriage, you do marriage prep. You sign off with a priest or deacon has to be there as witness and presider over that marriage. The church gets a say in every single vocation. You cannot discern alone. Mm-hmm. And you can utilize the church more or less. I recommend utilizing it more. Of course. But I was never worried that I'd make the wrong choice because I knew as long as I was completely honest with the people in the church who were walking alongside me, I couldn't make the wrong choice. I mean, why is the bishop there in the first place? He's a shepherd on behalf of Christ, successor to the apostles. Yeah. Like you cannot discern without his help. And so in my interview, I laid everything out. I said every doubt I had, I was completely honest with everything I was excited for, everything I thought I could do well, everything I thought I wouldn't do well, how I would approach seminary,
Yeah.
how I was approaching prayer now. Like I knew I couldn't make the wrong choice, even though half the days I wanted to just drop everything back out, never thinking about it again.
Yeah.
Like it was that difficult. It was that taxing. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't say my prayer life flip-flopped. It was more my internal disposition of what am I doing? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what am I doing here? How am I supposed to do it? There was constant confusion with that. And then just over time, working with the Lord, walking with Him, walking with the church, that just gradually faded away to the point where I am now, where
Yeah.
even if I were to become a priest with some act of God, um, I'm just so peaceful where I'm at. Like, I know I will make the right decision.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard as well because I think a lot of people discerning are so worried that they're going to somehow discern wrong. Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
what if I think I'm following the will of God, but I'm actually not, blah, blah, blah. That's a constant thing I hear with guys discerning priesthood.
Yeah.
Trust the church, trust God. If you move and you move with the intention of following the will of God, you will not get it wrong. Like, you will not. Even if you make the wrong steps, even if you slip, you have the
Mm-hmm.
intention of walking with Him. He sees that in your soul. He knows your desires. He's not going to let you jump off a cliff because you think that's His will.
Yeah.
Like, walk with the church. That's what they're there for. You will not make the wrong decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. For me, I knew it was inevitable that I had to explore the potential of the supernatural calling to priesthood.
Mm-hmm.
But the part where fear comes in for me is, although I know I'm going to get an answer, although I know God's will be done, not mine, there's still always that fear in the back of my mind that I'm doing something wrong, or that I'm going to end up in the wrong place, or it's like, oh, you're going to be a priest, you're going to miss out on all the amazing things in marriage, which is initially all the things that I wanted. But and then it's the same with, I guess, marriage and dating. It's like, okay, I could be doing this, but even then, like, oh, maybe I'm scared I would never find my wife, or I'm scared I missed out on this calling and I'm searching for nothing. And prayer has been so crucial to me, because the devil, he operates in fear and temptation, and whenever you're praying and trusting in God's will, you can, I guess, better ignore and combat those. Now, I think it's inevitable if you're discerning your vocation, there's going to be spiritual attacks because the enemy does not want you to do something that glorifies God.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're going to get married or you're going to become a priest, he hates that, right?
Yeah.
So you have to, I guess, just get through that in prayer, but also you have to be really aware of those attacks. And this is something I've spoke to a few priests about recently, especially I spoke to Father Ben recently, and I was talking to him about all the spiritual warfare I was experiencing. I've just recently, in the last month, I've had nightmares, I've had things such as that, and none of them felt like God sent answers whenever I sit back and look at them. So, and I pray about them. It all feels like it's someone trying to keep me scared of the priesthood. It's someone trying to keep me away, but also scared of marriage as well. Like I said, I think the enemy wants me to stay that parked car. And
For sure.
it's like, okay, I can't let that happen.
And just thinking how much faith it takes, which again, this isn't going to make sense to anyone who's not, well, maybe it'll make sense to some non-Catholics, but think of how much faith it takes to just take that leap. To be like, man, today I have no idea what I'm going to be, but I'm going to keep moving in the way that I said I would because I trust God.
Yeah.
Like, you don't get more childlike than that. Like, you don't get more all in than that. And it is hard. That's what I was talking about. Like, it is sacrifice. True sacrifice is really hard. But, like, it is so good. It's so good. And whether you're a priest or not, whether you're a wife, or you're not a wife, whether you're a husband or a priest, learning how to follow the Lord that radically can only help you. Like, even if right now you're completely walking in the dark, it can only help you. And Father Ben was my spiritual director too throughout this whole. I mean, he still is my spiritual director, but
Okay.
throughout the whole process of
Yeah.
discerning seminary, and it's just, if the Lord wants to answer a question, He's going to answer it, and if He wants you to just keep going, keep following Him, He's going to let you do that. And so it's just, all right, pull up your bootstraps every day and just get ready to follow. And it is hard, but like I said, I mean, it's a little easy for me to say that now because I'm out of it.
Right.
Or at least I'm out of it for now. I know obviously like when I have kids, that'll be hard.
Yeah.
Like when I get married, like there will be hard times in that. But right now, I'm completely at peace. I'm completely consoled.
Yes.
So it's easy for me to say, but like it is, I just can't deny that the hardest year of my life was by far the best. And it was the best because I fought tooth and nail every step of the way against God. And yet, as long as I kept moving, as long as I kept forcing myself to go, okay, no, I will do what I said I was going to do. He uses all of it. So
yeah, definitely. Another thing for me, I forgot to mention, whenever I was talking about temptation and fear, one of the, I guess, probably the main temptation for me has been distraction. I have, every time I think about doing something for my seminary application, or I think about what I'm going to do today to pray about it, go to daily mass, whatever, it feels like something's always trying to come up to distract me from moving forward with it. And it's like, it's not a good feeling, but then whenever I pray and I focus and I do start pressing the gas pedal on my car a little more, it becomes more clear. And I hate the feeling of being completely 50-50. It's like, this is about 2 months ago is when I was completely 50-50. Like I told you before that I was seeing a girl a few months ago, and the thought of priesthood towards the end of that was kind of ripping me in half. And
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And ultimately, luckily, I prayed to God about it. I prayed that His will be done with that sort of relationship and whatnot. But I got my answers pretty fast, and the answers was, okay, she left, she's gone. Now I can focus on this and not be distracted. But just the feeling of being 50-50, it's tough.
Well, just to reiterate, I mean, that's why walking with the church is so important, because you can be 100% sure you're going to be a priest. If the church says no, you're not going to become a priest. It doesn't matter what you think about it. So, and also something else that I was reminded at the time, one of my vices is, or maybe not a vice, because it's not necessarily like immediately sinful unless I dwell on it, but one of my potentially harmful dispositions is that I have a tendency to dive headfirst into things, sometimes irrationally. Like I'm a decision maker. Some of my two sisters are a little bit more indecisive than I am, and I remember watching them as I grew up, and I was like, all right, I don't want to do that. So I just did the exact opposite, which has helped me a lot in a lot of ways, but also can be hurtful, because sometimes you don't need to jump in like head first. Sometimes you do need to take a step back and be like, all right. But one of the things I was doing when I was discerning priesthood is I was only thinking about myself as a priest. Well, you got 7 years of seminary ahead of you for a reason.
Yeah.
You're discerning 1 year at a time. Like, I think to Save 1,000 Souls, you might even say this.
It does.
Yeah. You're discerning 1 year at a time. And once you realize that, there's no pressure. I mean, even if you get accepted to seminary, I said this in terms of marriage, but it's the same thing for priesthood too. Your vocation is a series of proposals. Take dating, for example. It's not just one day you get down on one knee and then boom, you're married.
Yeah.
It's a series of yeses, starting from the first date all the way up to the altar, where incrementally you say yes to someone more and more and more and more and more until you fully give yourself to someone in the sacrament of marriage at the altar, consummated through the sexual act. Yeah. For priesthood, it's the exact same thing. The first proposal is God will approach you with that desire, because it's a supernatural desire. Everybody has the natural desire towards marriage.
Yeah, it's like default.
Or at least that's the properly ordered desire.
Yeah.
But the supernatural desire, the one that goes above and beyond, has to be given to you. It's a gift to the priesthood. That's the first proposal. Then you go to applying to seminary. Then each year of seminary, you grow closer and closer to the priesthood. Then you got the diaconate. I know that this is an improper analogy, and some people might get mad at me for saying this, but the diaconate is, at least in some sense similar to like the fiance stage. Now, obviously,
Right.
you're all in at that point.
Yeah.
It's more so than like it's a lot more commitment than just being engaged. Like you're not a priest yet, even though you will be soon. It's a series of proposals until you get to the altar
Yeah.
and say your final yes, and then it's forever, or until your spouse dies. But to think about it in terms, you would never ask a girl on a date because you're ready to get out on one knee. Well, you should never ask the church to become a priest because you're ready to lay down in front of the altar. You're discerning 1 year at a time.
Yeah.
And once I realized that, once I thought about it in that way, it kind of took the pressure off as well. Because I could be 3 years into seminary and then it's like, oh, okay, this isn't for me. Or I could be 2 years into dating someone and okay, this needs to change. And those are the things that happen in life all the time. And you just have to be, that's the type of way you have to follow God, is to be ready to give it up at any time. And to just day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, figure it out. You're never going to discern. The Lord's never going to ask you to discern 15 years in the future, 10 years in the future. It's what do I need to do for the Lord today? Each day is a gift given to us. If we're living like today isn't a gift, but just a waiting period to get to tomorrow, we're never going to be happy.
Yeah.
So keeping that in mind when I was discerning was really helpful as well. Particularly, a lot of these things are hindsight things that I realized after.
Of course, yeah.
But they're very helpful in my opinion.
Yeah. And I'm sure same thing, like a year from now, I'll be looking at hindsight at the things I'm thinking right now, and I'll have a lot greater answers and a lot greater understanding.
If that ever stops. Like,
I don't think
like
it does.
65,
No. There's no way it
I hope it
stops.
stops.
Like,
at some point, I want to make decisions that I'm always confident about.
yeah, I guess.
I guess even St. Augustine wrote like retractions. So
yeah,
he was getting up there in age. He's like, I should write a book about everything I changed my mind about.
I think one thing I think it's in our human nature, but one thing we really do, especially this is something I do, is we like to romanticize what we're pursuing, and that's not just like women or relationships.
That's definitely true.
And one thing I've had to do is kind of check myself and back off of romanticizing marriage too much and romanticizing priesthood too much. Yeah. It's like whichever one you do, it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
And it's easy for me to just say, oh, well, if I get married and find the right person, I'm going to be happy for the rest of life. It's like, well, no, maybe you're going to struggle with that person too. Mm-hmm. And with the priesthood, it's like, okay, well, I found God's calling. I'm going to be fulfilled and never lonely again, truly, because I'm married to the church. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, don't romanticize that too much either. Because if you do that, you kind of have this superficial perception of what the outcome of your vocation will be. Ultimately, whatever you do, it's going to be for God. But we're not in heaven yet.
Yeah.
We're not perfected yet in heaven.
Yeah.
So
there is a beauty to like the honeymoon phase of relationships, but no one would ever say that the deepest relationship they know or the most beautiful relationship they know of is someone in a honeymoon phase, like in the first 2 months of dating.
Yeah.
No.
Like that feels the best, but
right. Well, and maybe not even. But
I guess I wouldn't know.
I guess I wouldn't either. Well,
my longest relationship's 3 months. I couldn't tell you.
No, I've had long relationships, but I have not been married for like 30 years. But like the most beautiful relationships I know, and I've actually been very blessed. Like there is no divorce in my immediate or extended family. So like my grandparents have been married for getting close to 60 years.
Yeah.
And they just have such a beautiful relationship. My parents, like, and actually, again, Mom and Dad, if you're watching this, credit to my parents. Like, I'm sure that they've had rocky patches in their marriage. I mean, who hasn't? Yeah. But like, from the perspective of being a child, and I'm the youngest, so that might be a little different as well. I don't even know when those would be. Like, they did such a good job of not fighting in front of us, of keeping things between them, of being a unit. Like, for 30 plus years. I think they've been married for coming on like 34 years now. Yeah. And it's like, those are the most beautiful relationships. Don't get me wrong, I love the honeymoon phase. Everybody loves the honeymoon phase. But who would ever say that the deepest, most beautiful relationships you know are those? No, they're always someone who has lived a life of sacrifice for another person, who's seen the worst of someone else and loved them anyway.
Like you said, it's that series of yeses.
Yeah, exactly.
The
yes,
fourth yes, the fifth yes is going to be a lot better than the first yes and the second yes.
Yes, exactly.
It's a lot deeper, more meaningful. Yeah.
And because romanticizing it even deprives it of the beauty that comes through suffering. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that you just are trying to be a realist, you know?
Yeah.
Romanticizing it, it makes it not the truth, and the truth is goodness. Yeah. So when you take away some of that truth, you remove some of that goodness, some of that beauty that comes with it. That's why it's so important not to romanticize marriage, to romanticize the priesthood. Not just because you'll get blindsided when it does get hard, but because the suffering, it's not a defect.
Yeah.
It's part of the world that we live in that has been given to us. That it is a gift. I mean, they say, "Oh, happy fall" at the Easter Vigil for original sin. Like, we are ultimately meant to live without sin, but Jesus comes and gives us the blueprint for the world to live on this earth, and that is suffering, that is sacrifice. That's the most beautiful, most good thing we can do. And so to romanticize a vocation is to take away the most beautiful part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fake goodness.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure.
One question I was going to ask is, a big part of my prayer life has become seeking, I guess, the guidance and I guess the prayers of Mary. So what's your relationship with the Blessed Mother been like?
Yeah, I do love the Blessed Mother, our Blessed Mother. It's changed over time. I think when I was a kid, oh man, Protestants are going to get a field day out of this one. I used to pray to Mary in the same way as I'd pray to God.
Yeah.
Not because I necessarily like thought she was God. Like, I never thought that, obviously. Yeah. But I would ask her for things in the same way that I'd ask God for things. So when I came back to the faith, that changed to give the proper ordering of that relationship, of seeing Mary as a mediator, saying, these are the things I'm struggling with, these are the things I'm happy about. Help me give these to your son in the most perfect way that I can.
Yeah.
Help let me borrow some of your grace to give to your son what I can't give properly on my own, as opposed to just using her as like a pseudo genie.
Yeah, exactly.
But so that's one way that my relationship with Mary has changed to her mother. But also just when I've been most, I don't know if fed up is the right word. I hear a lot of people say that they get angry with God. I've never really understood that. I've never really gotten angry with God, because ultimately, even if I disagree with him or I resist him, I know that ultimately there's no possible world where I'm right and he's not.
Yeah.
So like, I've never gotten angry with God.
Right.
But when I'm most exhausted and when I've given everything to God already and I still feel exhausted, our Blessed Mother is who I usually turn to, because I don't know, sometimes you just need a motherly touch, and not necessarily that. And I want to be clear, it's not that God can't give me what our Blessed Mother gives me in those moments, but that he allows me to get it through her instead.
Yeah.
And he allows me, because we are all part of the mystical body of Christ. We are all one family. And so it wouldn't do for me just to grow closer with God. He also wants me to grow closer, like with you, for example, with this conversation. Yeah. Like every Bible study, I don't know if you noticed this, I pray that we grow what? Closer to God and closer to each other.
Yes.
Because we are given to each other as gifts. It's not just supposed to be me and God. And so frequently throughout my discernment, God allowed me to grow closer to him through his mother specifically. And he prompted me towards her specifically. And I'm not going to pretend, like, I'm consecrated to the Sacred Heart. I'm not consecrated to Mary. I think you can be consecrated to multiple things. But I know a lot of priests are consecrated to Mary. So it's not like I have the strongest relationship with her out of anyone I know. I don't. I'm not going to pretend like I do.
Yeah.
I usually, in fact, go straight to Jesus. But learning how to just have a relationship with my mother, and learning how to go to her when God wants me to grow closer to the rest of his family and not just himself, has been a beautiful thing. And learning how to do that with my patron saint as well, John the Baptist, and Saint Joseph, especially with lust. Saint Joseph is, all men should go to Saint Joseph.
Yeah, that's something I've been looking into recently.
Yeah. So learning how to do that has been beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and then one thing, I mean, the title itself, the titles of mother and father, like, I'll just say this. One thing I've always had issues with is my relationship with my mom. And I heard this great analogy by Father Mark Mary one time, and it was when you're praying the rosary and you're growing in relationship with Mary, she's taking you. I like this analogy. It was imagine Mary taking your hand like with the touch of a mother's love and walking you through a beautiful garden.
Mm.
And it's like there's a certain comfort in that and knowing that you not just have an earthly but a heavenly mother as well, and that
Mm-hmm.
she's all of our mothers. And the titles, right? I mean, Jesus is king. Well, who's the mother of the king?
Queen Mother.
The queen. Exactly. So just that relationship and being able to see her as my mother, and then in a of course it's a totally different way being able to see God the Father as a father.
Yeah.
Those those titles, they're there for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason that, like in the Gospel of Luke, it says, "My soul magnifies the Lord."
Yes.
Right? Like when I picture Mary taking me by the hand through a walk in this beautiful garden, she's not doing it to for any other reason other than to, I guess, calm my heart like a mother's touch would and lead me to Jesus. That's where we're walking, you know?
Yeah. And it is just so beautiful, like the army of the saints in heaven that we get to walk with them. It's such a gift because especially, and I didn't bring this up when we were talking about my conversion, but like one of the things that I found funny, the more and more in depth I've gone into theology and the history of the church and stuff like that, is pretty much every single objection that I hear, not from like professionals. Like obviously there are professors of theology
Yeah.
who go higher and deeper than this, but from like your average Protestant or your average atheist or your average just secular person, the objections they have to the Catholic Church are like literally over 1,000 years old. Like all of them.
Yeah.
Like it's always so funny to me. I'm like, I read Augustine talking about this, and he lived what 16 and a half or 1,650 years ago or whatever it was,
Yeah.
or a little less. Like this is not a new objection that you're leveling against me. Like, do you not think that we know these things? Just to have the corpus of the saints, of their works, of their writings, of their mistakes. Like Augustine's Confessions, there were two books that when I decided to become Catholic, I read that like changed my life, I guess.
Yeah.
The first was A Father Keeps His Promises by Scott Hahn, because that introduced me to reading the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And the second was Augustine's Confessions, because I got to see that one of the greatest saints of all time, even though I was completely culturally Catholic, I knew St. Augustine. Like everybody knows St. Augustine, right? To read, like, I mean, he had kids with a prostitute. Like, I haven't done that. Have you done? Like, I don't know many people who have. And he is one of the greatest saints and theologians of all time. Like, reading and learning from his mistakes and then seeing how much you can change as a man. Because he wrote that pretty late into his life, obviously.
Yeah.
So you get to him talking about stealing pears and being like rampantly a sexual deviant to like, oh my gosh, like I'm being gluttonous in the music I listen to because I'm listening to the harmony instead of using the words to bring my mind towards God. I'm like, oh my gosh, this guy's so much better than me.
Yeah.
But like having that available to us, not just to read over, but to pray with.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Yeah.
ask St. Augustine for that grace. I can give him my thoughts and my desires that are similar to his to give to the Lord who he is with in heaven right now. Like if I didn't have that, I mean it would suck, first of all. But like
Yeah.
it really is just I do feel for our Protestant brothers and sisters who just don't get to experience that. And to me it's like if you want to reject the papacy, like whatever. I think you're wrong, but like whatever. Why reject the corpus of the saints? Yeah. They're so beautiful. Like, let them walk with you. I don't like. Oh my gosh, that is what I wish. That in the Eucharist, obviously, I wish that Protestants could experience the Eucharist. But like, there are so many saints in heaven who are there for you. Like they want to talk to you. They want to grow closer to the, what is it? Are we church militant, I think, on earth?
Yeah.
Yeah, church militant, church suffering, yeah. So they want to grow closer to the church militant. Talk to them, walk with them, and our Blessed Mother.
Imagine our prayers going up to heaven. I think one of my favorite symbolic things in the Mass is the incense and
Yes.
seeing the incense rising up in symbol of our prayers rising up to the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
And think about that, and then think about the people who are already alive in eternal life, perfected with God in heaven. If our prayers can be heard by God, well, imagine how much closer they are if they're perfectly in union with them.
I don't intend to stop praying for my friends as soon as I get to heaven.
No, absolutely not. Yeah. I think kind of the rejection of intercessory prayer, it has to come from a preconceived notion that when people die, they're like cut off from the body on earth. And I don't think anybody truly thinks that's what eternal life is. I don't think when you die, you're just like, you don't care about the people on earth because you're in heaven.
Yeah, I think
that's such a preconceived notion that like the body of Christ is not.
I think
between both.
The primary sticking point might also just be that they see praying to the... Well, so think about it this way. What does Protestant worship look like?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like praying to God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. Because they don't do sacrifices like the Catholics do. I mean, even like the High Church Lutherans, High Church Anglicans, their sacrifice is a spiritual sacrifice.
Right.
Catholics at Mass sacrifice the body and blood of Jesus again. It's the same sacrifice as the one at Calvary to God. The reason why the Eucharist is the source and summit of Christian life is because that is the only thing that we can ever give God that is actually worthy of him.
Yeah.
Because it is God.
Yeah.
And so when I go to a Protestant worship, I've been to a couple before, like Protestant praise and worship.
Me too.
Praise and worship services. Those are great, whatever. I mean, I'm a little bit more traditional in the hymns I like to listen to, but I can do praise and worship, I can listen to it, just for fun.
Yeah.
If that was all I did for my whole life, that's the only way I worship God, oh my gosh, I could never do that because there's so much lacking. And so if the maximum that you're giving to God is your prayer, you're never sacrificing for him. You're never uniting yourself with the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross in the Mass as he told us to do. If you're not doing that, then to pray to the saints is to give exactly what you give to God to the saints. It's the same type of worship. And so how would that not be, blasphemous?
That's a good point.
Well, it's because you miss what it is to truly worship God.
And look at the Old Testament. What does worship always involve? It's always involved sacrifice.
Yeah.
What was Jesus? He's the sacrificial lamb.
Right. Ecce agnus Dei.
Yeah.
Behold the Lamb of God.
Yeah. And one thing I like to think about is, for me, it's kind of hard to... For me, it kind of sounds morbid to think about, and I don't like to say it at the Mass, Jesus is being re-sacrificed or somehow he's being killed again or something like that. I've heard that as an argument. I think that's kind of bad to say he's killed again. What I like more is thinking that we're present there at Calvary. Yes. Imagine this cloud and the heaven comes down to earth and opens into a window between, outside of time and space, obviously, right? Time's not a thing here.
Yeah.
You're there at Calvary, and imagine every time you bow down, imagine you're kissing the feet of Jesus on the cross. Imagine you're weeping at the base of the cross. That's the way the Mass has been described to me that makes the most sense.
Yeah. When the priest raises up the body, it is the cross being lifted.
Yeah.
When he lifts up the chalice, it is the lance piercing his side. When he puts the body into the blood and lifts them together, it is Jesus emerging triumphant from the tomb. We are brought to these events.
Yes.
It is the entirety of the Triduum every time we go to Mass. And then, Holy Week's coming up here. Is it next week? Yeah, Palm Sunday is this week, right?
Is it? I can't
I
remember.
think so. So Holy
I don't
Week
remember if
next
this week or
week.
next.
The Sacred Twin, we get to walk through that even more perfectly, where we live out the Last Supper on Thursday,
Yeah.
the crucifixion on Friday, the resurrection at the Easter Vigil overnight. Like every Mass, we get to see this, and in a more perfect way, we see it at the Triduum. I really cannot imagine, like the Orthodox, like at least they have that, Protestants, like I really cannot imagine living. I would feel so. I already felt empty when I was a cultural Catholic, when I didn't understand all this. If I understood all this and thought that the maximum I could give was like a praise and worship Bible reading night, oh my gosh, like that would,
It's watered down.
do that. I know, like it would feel so empty to me, like it's missing. It's missing something. I mean, even the Jews, like you look at when they rebuilt the Second Temple, the people who were alive to see the first one wept. Like they were crying because they're like, we can never give to God something better than, first of all, what he gives to us, and then what he gives back to himself. Like we cannot equal that. So if we're not participating in it, we're never fully uniting ourselves with God.
And true presence, like in the Eucharist aside, the whole Protestant argument that his sacrifice was a one-time sacrifice. It's like, well, I mean, it was, but what are we worshiping? What are we going to church for? Well, you go to the Mass because it's worshiping him on the cross there.
Yeah. The one sacrifice that is worthy of God.
Yeah.
And we get to I think in Catholics do make this mistake sometimes of thinking the Mass is for them. It's not. The Mass is not for you. The Mass is for God the Father, and it is offered to God the Father through Jesus Christ. The Mass is there for us to give ourselves to Jesus, to sacrifice ourselves to God the Father, which is perfected through Jesus.
Even everything the priest does, the priest isn't there to show you something. He's there to lead us in participation. Right. That's why I really like whenever the priest is facing the altar, rather. Because it really it shows you how we're all there. And I mean, obviously through the persona Christi of the priest, we're all participating in it.
Yeah. On our behalf.
Yep.
That is the Mass and confession are the two things that, because I mean, like I said, I'm 99% sure I'm going to be married, but I do know, I have a unique sense of the beauty of the priesthood because I applied the Mass and the sacrament of confession. Those were tough to walk away from. To be like, I'm never going to get to do that. Yeah. Because they're so beautiful.
It's one thing that really draws me to it and lets me know that there could be this other vocation for me. It's that I've talked about this before, but like when I hear the words of the priest, whenever I hear just all the beautiful elements of the Mass, when I hear him go through him and with him and in him, it's like, that's for a while now. That's hit me in a different type of way. It's beautiful. Yeah, that's worship.
Yeah, the Mass. Yeah, it's the best thing in my life.
It quite literally is.
And it is sad that my human flaws sometimes water down what's truly happening in front of me. Yeah. Like the fact that I get used to it, Yeah.
It's like as a kid, I never thought to think about.
Yeah.
No. I didn't want to be there. It's going through the motions, right? But it's like, well, I thought I was going through the motions, but there I am at Calvary.
And that is why I think it's important to have a beautiful liturgy as well, because it brings you all the more closer, like through your physical senses, to what is actually happening. I mean, that's partly why I love the Latin Mass so much, is it's so much easier for me to enter into that sacrifice through the smells and bells of the Latin Mass.
Smells and bells, yeah. It's appealing to all your senses.
It's everything.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the Latin Mass, but also like my home parish St. Vincent, it's a beautiful Novus Ordo, and it is sad how many churches are just ugly and wishy-washy, like Catholic churches in these culturally Catholic places. Yeah, like it's the same thing. It could be so much more.
The fullness of the truth, one could say.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and even more so for, like I said, Protestants who never get to actually experience the Mass in its true form.
Yeah. And it's easy to misunderstand it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Well, it was great having this conversation with you today. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I think it was a great conversation.
Of course, thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And thanks for being a great Bible study leader, of course. And I think I'll end in prayer real quick as well. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord, we thank you today that you allowed us to come together and have a fruitful conversation. Help us always to keep you at the center of our lives, center of our minds, and to do your will and not our own. Help us to explore God's calling, and help us always, always to remain faithful and constantly in prayer. I thank you, Lord, for all the blessings and all the experiences you've put in my life to get to the point where I am and where Caleb is as well. In your name we pray. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.